right now, it's time for our next segment, which is something that I've been working on, and then this is like something that I'll present, and then the rest of the group will chime in with their their bits as well. So we are in January. January 1st is the birthday of several people, but most importantly, especially for right now and for this particular presentation, January 1st is the birthday of Haruo Nakajima, who we lost several years ago. Haruo Nakajima is the man who played Godzilla from 1954 to 72, with some other roles thrown in there. And we are going to do a little bit of chatting about this for you guys. So what I wanted to do is give a little bio of Nakajima. So we'll see how well I do on that. Nakajima was born January 1st, 1929. There he is as a baby, adorable little Nakajima-san. He was born in an area of Japan called Sakata, which is a coastal city or coastal town. And his father had a butcher shop. He was the oldest, sorry, not the oldest, the third oldest of 5 brothers. Here he is with his 2 older brothers. He's on the right. There's Nakajima in 1943 when he entered the Naval Academy in Yokosuka. I did not make a separate slide for this, but basically, if you look at where Sakata is, it's way, can you see the mouse? It's way up here by Sendai, and Tokyo's down here. Right near Tokyo, that's where Yokosuka is. Yokosuka has a naval base, and so he entered that Naval Academy in 1943, the same year, basically, that the war kind of ended. He eventually found himself sort of in between jobs, looking for stuff to do, and he did get married. This is his wife. Oh my gosh, I don't have her name written down in front of me. I think it's Kuniko, but this is his wife. I believe, is also his child, like high school sweetheart. In 1949, though, because he was sort of bouncing around jobs in and around Tokyo, he entered Toho's acting school. And you can see him in several films as a background player. Not that I've seen these movies. Here he is with some people at a track who are basically just onlookers. He literally is a background player. I don't think I've ever seen him in a speaking role outside of something I'll show a little bit later. Later on in his life, he will continue to do these on-screen but non-talking roles, and we've heard about him being a samurai in Seven Samurai. There he is with Akira Kurosawa. And then we're going to wind it back to 1953, though, because that's where he made a historic move. Nakajima was in a movie as one of those players. He was a pilot, and it's funny, he actually always wanted to be a pilot, but he was a pilot in this movie, and that's when during a scene, 2 people took note of him. One was Ishiro Honda, the director, and the other was a special effects director, Eiji Tsuburaya, who essentially looked at them and said, hey, can you take some abuse? Because I think we want to do something cool. At this time, stuntmen in Japan were apparently not a thing in the movies, right? So basically, if you played this role, and that role meant you got pushed down a flight of stairs, be prepared to get pushed down a flight of stairs. Anyway, so Tsuburaya and Honda put him in a scene where he is on fire, and he has to escape from his jet, and he is on fire from Eagle of the Pacific. But the reason that is significant is because that, ladies and gentlemen, is the test that he was put through to get the role for the next big project at Toho. I think we all know what that is. Also, shout out to John Ruffin and his beautiful toy photography right there.
Yeah, wow.
So yes, he became Godzilla. And basically each one of us is going to talk about an iconic role in just a few minutes, but we're going to just kind of quickly go through some of his roles. He started off with Godzilla. We know why it was hard, but that's why he was there. He had a tough time doing that job, but they brought him back for the second film, Godzilla Raids Again, where of course he fights Angulus in then in 1956, he was inside of the Rodan suit. And David's going to talk a little bit about that later. In 1957, he was a Mysterian, but he also was inside of the Mogura suit. Did you guys know that he played a Mysterian as well? I think in the if anybody have this book here, it's like a photo book of Nakajima's work, and in here there's a photo of him as a Mysterian. I think it's one of the guys who's like shot. He's on the ground as some of the main character actors are running around. Anyway, yes. So sorry, getting sidetracked. Of course, he played one of my favorite monsters, Varan, in Daikaiju Varan, or Varan the Unbelievable. And of course, he flies in this movie. But you might not believe a monster can fly in Daikaiju Varan. And then we have 1961's Mothra, where he is actually inside of that Mothra suit. It's a huge, huge costume. There's a shot overhead, I think, unless it's already passed, where you can see how large the set is. Actually, if I do this, you might be able to see it. There it is. You can see how large that set is. Anyway, moving along to 1962, King Kong versus Godzilla. Of course, Nakajima is back to play Godzilla after all of those other roles. And of course, this is only Godzilla's third movie. And did you know, it's not a kaiju role, but I love Atragon. 1963's Atragon, or Kaite Gunken, is something really special about it. And he plays the frogman, the Moo frogman that pops up at the very beginning of the film. Anyway, also the same year, 1963, we saw Matango, and he didn't play that very first shot. He plays one of these guys, the bigger, bulkier mushroom men. Nakajima grabbing all those poor shipwrecked fools. And then, of course, we are back, 1964's Mothra versus Godzilla. He plays Godzilla.
Yes!
Of course, he's going to keep doing this. Big surprise.
Great performance in that one.
Good performance.
The best suit.
Really.
The best suit.
Best suit, but also the performance is really, really great. Like, this is why I included this clip.
Yep.
It's him outside of the suit. Love him on the beach.
Best show ever.
This, I thought, was a really great photo because you get Eiji Tsuburaya standing right in front of him. That's Nakajima in the bandana behind.
That's just Mothra prop, too. My God.
Yeah. It's huge.
And then, of course, this very same year, they had Ghidra the three-headed monster. So he played Godzilla again, fighting the three-headed terror from outer space. And, this is, of course, where he begins that heroic journey that I think one of our co-hosts is going to be talking about a little bit later. 1965, the very next year, he played Baragon in Frankenstein versus Baragon. I absolutely adore the fact that he sort of goes in and out of these monster suits and then into the human suits later. Here's a great photo of him in the Baragon suit with the sort of crew around him. The guy in the beret there with the glasses, that's a very, very young Keizo Murase.
Wow.
No way.
And of course, if you got Nick Adams in 1965 in your Frankenstein movie, you better put him in a Godzilla movie, right? So Astro Monster comes out, or Invasion of Astro Monster, and Godzilla does everything, including going to space and dancing on Planet X. This photo is actually from that year. This is two of his co-stars that are also in the suits, Masaki Shinohara, who played Rodan, and Shoichi Hirose, who played King Ghidra. Hirose actually played many characters in over the years. Someday we'll have to do like a huge like suitmation explosion kind of presentation. That'd be cool. Moving along, he moved ship, right? He didn't move ship, but basically Tsuburaya said, I can't do these Ultra shows without you. And so Tsuburaya asked him to be Gomez in Ultra Q, one of my favorites. I'll be talking about this guy later. And it wasn't just Gomez. He played Pagos.
I love Pagos.
Very important for the let's see, how would I say this? The quintilogy of Baragon suits. I love the Baragon suit was made for Pagos and some of the other monsters, and it makes sense, right? Because Nakajima was in Baragon, so he fits the suit. Yep. They made him into Pagos, and then of course in Ultraman, They use that same suit to make Naranga here. It's really, I've got all of them represented in X plus form. Sometimes I put them around like a little circle. It's like the circle of life. The circle of life of a Baragon suit. And then here's Gabora also using that same
Oh my god, I
that
got a
same
little use
suit.
out of
Yeah.
that.
There is one more Ultra suit that apparently he didn't play Magular, but that's another suit that they took and added stuff to the Baragon suit is Magular.
Correct.
We'll
That's
go
right.
ahead and, of course, touch on the fact that Gomez was the first monster I showed you from the Ultra series. This is the second monster made from a Godzilla suit. This is Jiras. And, of course, for a brief second here, Godzilla with a frill, the frill is removed, and then Godzilla and Ultraman are fighting for, what is it, like 5 seconds, David? Something
Yeah,
like that.
about 5 seconds, give or take.
Man.
Anyway, we'll move along to another episode. This is the Spaceship Rescue Command, where Ultraman actually, well, there's actually two monsters in this episode, but this one is
Kira.
Kila.
Kira.
And this was played by Haruo Nakajima right there. You can really tell
You can
it's
see him.
Nakajima, right? Using
Yeah.
Yep.
the way he moves in those suits. Anyway, hopping back over to Toho, 1966 brought us the sequel to Frankenstein Conquers the World. And of course, we all know that Nakajima gets to play Gyra, the green gargantua, which is one of his favorite roles. I'm sure Leslie's going to talk about that. And then also in 66, he was Godzilla for Ebirah Horror of the Deep, fighting a giant lobster. 67, the following year, the big kaiju boom year, that's when he gets to play King Kong for the first time.
Yeah.
In King Kong Escapes. And then he didn't play Godzilla in Son of Godzilla, except for the scenes that they used the 1966 suit for in the water here.
Yep.
And, of course, 1968, he played Godzilla in Destroy All Monsters. I'm going to blast through a bunch of these. As you guys know about Latitude Zero, Latitude Zero is an insane movie where there are giant rats, giant Batmen, and a griffin, and Nakajima played all of those monsters.
It's a wild movie, man.
It is really wild. And then, of course, in 69, he was fighting Gabara for Armenia in All Monsters Attack. 1970, Nakajima played both Gezora and Ganime in the movie Space Amoeba, or Yog, Monster from Space. And then here's an awesome shot of him in the Gezora
That's
costume.
cool picture.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember who did this. Maybe it was Resin Chef, but basically there is a kit
Model
version
kit,
of this where the top of the cuttlefish comes off, and there's a Nakajima inside of the kit.
That's cool.
I'm sure Ryan Mitchell knows he's still in the chat room. He's the model guy. He's the go-to model guy.
So then we go all the way to the following year, 1971, where Godzilla does battle with Hedra, and this is significant for, I'm sure. I'm just going to let John talk about why that's significant, but this is, of course, Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. At this point, Nakajima's studio contract was up. After the Smog Monster, he was no longer, he nor Toho, they were not obliged to have him be Godzilla in their next movie, Godzilla vs. Gigan, but apparently the crew sort of banded together and pulled some strings to get him to be Godzilla, which was, of course, his final performance. One, he gets to battle again with his buddy Angulus, and two, he gets to battle one of my favorite villain monsters, actually two of my favorite villain monsters, King Ghidorah and Gigan. And literally in this movie, you literally wave goodbye to Godzilla as Nakajima walks off into the sunset, right? It's a sad moment when you think about it like that, but it's also so fun and so goofy and such a great way to end the film that they did that in many other films. Anyway, there he goes. There's Nakajima-san in the last use of that Godzilla costume. If you did not know, listeners or viewers, it was used in Destroy All Monsters, All Monsters Attack, Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, and Godzilla vs. Gigan.
Got his work.
And it was
He
tore up
continued,
by that time.
yeah,
Yeah,
totally
tore
tore
up.
up by the time
Yeah,
it was
rough,
finished, right? So
I want an
after,
X-Plus figure like that. Tore up.
oh, that would be awesome if they had like the hanging bits of flesh off
Yeah.
it. I would probably watch that. Anyway, I'd probably buy that.
Our friend Cody Roberts did a custom of his 68. Just putting that out there of that tore up
Oh,
suit.
nice! I do remember that.
Oh,
I do
really?
remember that.
It's pretty cool. I was impressed with that.
Awesome.
Okay, so Nakajima continued to work for Toho, but not on screen. They put him to work in staff positions. I've read a couple of things. Number one, I've read he worked in the Toho bowling alley. I've read that he worked at the Toho Mahjong parlor, and I also read that he did some driving for them as well. So I'm not exactly sure what the end result is there, but basically he was sort of shuffling around. And the next video here, if you have not seen this is on YouTube, not my footage. Nakajima put on a promotional suit in 1983 for Uchusen magazine, which is a Japanese magazine. I have a couple of the magazines, but I don't have this one. I would love to see the photo spread that came out of this. But this is, again, available to watch on YouTube. And at the very end of the video, if I can continue sort of talking through this, at the very end of the video, you can actually see him getting out of the suit, and Sonoe's there helping out. It's Sonoe is his daughter, actually, which I will talk about in the... Man, I'm just not going to let this go. After many, many years, about 20-ish years, Nakajima was invited to be a guest at conventions, started to be invited to be a guest at conventions, and the first one was 1996's G-Con, where he was there with Kenpachiro Satsuma. Hey, look, there's a very young Stan Hyde there.
Oh,
Wow.
That continued. Nakajima continued to be invited to conventions. And there was sort of a resurgence. I can't remember what year this was. I think it was like 2012 or 2013 or something. He was invited to Monster Palooza, and August Ragone was involved, and he worked with somebody to create this killer poster
That's a
that
great
celebrated Nakajima. You could see him there signing some of them.
great.
And that is actually his daughter Sonoe that I was talking about, standing next to him. And they're talking with Tetsu from Anime Jungle at the front of the table there.
That's great.
And
That's a great
Nakajima
picture.
continued to do appearances. I should say that this appearance at Monster Palooza, several of these appearances have gained media coverage from wherever they are. And then sometimes that gets picked up in Japan, and Nakajima would go through a little bit of a boon over there. But with this one here from Monster Palooza, his hometown of Sakata actually had a fan club that sort of finally organized themselves, as is sort of how they put it in the video, and they created like a museum exhibition of Nakajima's work, basically. And there's a great video about it. Hopefully, I don't know if I actually have a link to it in this, but basically, there's a couple of videos that I will link to in the show notes. One is from Oh, here we go. Cool. So this was one. This is The Man Who Became Godzilla. This is from Sci-Fi Japan TV. This is Jim Ballard and J.R. Libertito, the guys who shot my documentary. They did a great piece on Nakajima and what I was just talking about, his little fan club in Sakata. And then the other video that I would suggest, and I'll put in the show notes, is Great Big Story. They did a lovely piece for Nakajima. I think it was in March of 2017. And in that video, you can see some very cool images from stuff that people have sent Nakajima over the years. David.
Oh,
this is your treat.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw that video, and I was so, like, my jaw hit the ground when a photo collage that I made for Nakajima-san is pictured behind him in this video. And I was just so honored and grateful, and it really filled my heart. It's like, that is what it's all about. And, being able to be at these conventions with him, those photos you showed before were actually my photos from Monster Palooza. I think that was 2015, Kyle, 2015 to 2016. I can't remember.
Let's see. That one, I think, was 2016, the one on the top left.
The bottom one is from Chiller. That's from Chile when he was there with all 3 Godzillas. But the other ones was from Monsterpalooza. He's just a wonderful guy. Get to have dinner with him. Sonoe is just a sweet, sweet person. Very, very caring for her father. Just was there for him every step of the way. And, you know, it was just so great to have him be able to come and spend time with his fans in his golden years. I just can't say enough about that. But yes,
Yeah, he loved it.
amazing stuff. And he did love it.
And then, unfortunately, on August 7th, Nakajima lost his life to pneumonia. And I think about a week later, they had a small ceremony for friends and colleagues. This is Ed Holland from Monster Attack magazine and Ben Furuya, who played Ultraman, of course, in the 1966 series. It's difficult to see, but basically that photo of them, they are standing in front of a display, and that display in the background are photos of Nakajima with fans who sent their photos in. Here's another shot of the table with some other memorabilia there. We all miss Nakajima very much. He was very important for everybody here. You know, I'm very happy that I was able to meet him and have some interactions with him. I don't need to talk about any more of that stuff, because we're going to continue on with this segment, because this is not supposed to be a bummer segment. This is a celebration of Nakajima and his life and his roles. And so I guess I'll put it to you guys. Should we go in chronological order in terms of the movies, or should we go in round the room order that we're already in?
Just go around the room where we are. It's fine.
Okay, round the room
Then I
order.
have to go first. I want to go first.
All right, so let me go first. I will say I need to open up a window here. So let me just do my.
That was wonderful, Kyle. I
Thank you very
loved
much.
that. It was great.
Yeah, beautiful.
The problem with doing a tribute like that is, of course, you can't cover everything. There's so much stuff you can cover.
Yeah.
Okay, so where is?
Watching those clips makes me want to go watch all of those Ultraman shows now.
Yes. The childhood memories he made for us.
Absolutely, 100%.
I still have to watch some of those. I have my Ultraman DVDs I brought with me in one of my boxes here still. I gotta bust them out and start watching them.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Nothing like the original.
And King Kong Escapes. I'm gonna get to that.
Okay,
Too late.
so I've got a few images to share here. And then I think each of us have like an image to share, at least one image.
Yeah,
and then what we're doing, the reason this is taking me so long is because I forgot to open up my images ahead of time. But basically, we're taking our favorite, or not favorite, some iconic Nakajima roles, and we're going to talk about those a little bit because we've got them in collectible form. And so I'm just going to go ahead and kick things off. I'll do this view. This is Gomez. Gomez, as I mentioned in the video, or the presentation, essentially, was the first Ultra Q monster. Is made from a Godzilla suit. And I have loved the Gomez design ever since I saw it. I think maybe the very first time I saw it, I was like, well, that's goofy. But then as soon as I saw the actual episode, I fell in love with the monster. I have a Gomez collection. Happy to say that I have a Gomez collection. Let me show you the behind the scenes photo of Gomez.
Oh wow!
Look at that.
Cool.
Nakajima sitting outside of the suit, half in, half out. That perfect balance for Nakajima.
Relax.
So not only this figure, let me do this. This figure is actually made by Artstorm or Future Models. Not Future, Future, but Feuture. They have created a bunch of Ultra stuff like this. So it's one of a series, but he comes with Elytra, who's actually up there. And this is one of the many Gomez figures that I have. And I think it's really an outstanding design, first and foremost. It's like deformed in a way that makes it sort of chibi, but at the same time, it's very, very well detailed. And despite a little dust on him, the paint application is absolutely fantastic. They've got some nice metallic work going on in there that makes it really pop against the flat. Anyway, sorry, I'm going off a little too much about this. But I really do love Gomez. He's like one of my favorite monsters, and I think it's significant that not only was he Gomez, but he was Pagos, he was Giras. Here's him getting into the Giras suit. This is him in the Naranga suit, and there you go. That's who I chose as my my monster of the week, I guess I should say, for Nakajima's celebration. I believe that thing, that means we're going over to Mr. Leslie Chambers. You ready, buddy?
Of course. Yes, I am. And of course, we all know that he was Godzilla throughout the majority of the Showa series, where he encompassed a good majority of the characterization that Godzilla went through, from being a serious metaphor to a straight up villain to an anti-hero to a father figure to a superhero. And it's easy to pick out a Godzilla figure or a Godzilla design. But I chose Gyra because I love this monster. And with Nakajima playing the superhero Godzilla, with this role, he does the complete opposite, where he plays basically just a giant, bloodthirsty predator. But that's basically what Gyra was. As a kid, we're drawn to heroes, but as I gotten older, I gravitate more to the villains. And I have to say that, with all due respect to the other villains out there in the Tokusatsu game, King Ghidorah, Gigan, whatever, I think Gyra is without a shadow of a doubt the greatest kaiju villain ever in the history of Tokusatsu. He's just awesome. I don't want to take up too much time here because I know we got more. The rest of my hosts want to talk. So I just keep it short and simple. I think that much of the success of War of the Gargantuars goes to Gyra, and it goes more so to the man behind the suit. So. Yes, that's why I chose Gyra. He's awesome. If you're not seeing What a Gargantuars, please, check it out. Don't go into it with this farce mentality that, it's guys in plant costumes and stuff like that. It really is a great movie. It really is.
It is.
And from what I understand, I think this was Nakajima's personal favorite role. So, hey, we both great minds. Great minds think alike. All right, so I'm gonna kick it over to the next host. Go ahead, David.
Actually, Christine's next, right? Or
Me.
Oh, Christine.
I think there's
yeah. So I had to go with the classic, the 54 Godzilla.
Of course, you have to.
I mean, I picked this one because this was the first Godzilla movie that I saw when I was about 5 or 6. My dad had bought me King of Monsters, so this was my first introduction to Tokusatsu and suit acting and all this kind of stuff from Japan. And so this is what I fell in love with. This is the gigantic series X plus Godzilla. But I mean, I think is Nakajima's. Well, it is his most iconic role that everyone recognizes, and just the way he was able to portray the character in such like a heavy, bulky suit, where he can move around a lot in it. But I just lost what I was gonna say. I'm just gonna get. Then I also have the 30 centimeter X plus figure that I wanted to show off here. But so one of the things about this suit is, so when they first made, this is my one. When they first made the first production of the suit, it was so heavy that Nakajima wasn't able to move around in it barely at all. So they cut the suit in half. So as you know, the bottom portion they used for his feet stomping along the city and destroying the buildings, and then the top portion they used for some of the water images, where he's the second part where he's going through the channels of water and throwing up the bridges and all that. So I thought that was really interesting. Even though he couldn't use the whole fursuit, they were still able to use parts of it to film for the movie. And so this was my first introduction to Godzilla and to Nakajima. So this is the one that I picked. Let me bring my big old guy up here again. This is what a lot of us think of when we're thinking of monster movies from Japan, is Godzilla.
Absolutely.
So that was my pick. Love this guy.
Excellent.
And who's your choice who's your choice, David?
Okay, so before I go into my choice, I just want to say, you keen kaiju movie watchers out there, next time you're watching your Godzilla movies, check to see if you can find the cameos of Nakajima where he shows up out of costume.
Oh,
Yes.
He does it in quite a few, but there's 3 that I'm going to briefly chat about. Number 1, the original 54. He's in the newsroom scene where they're printing out the newspapers of Godzilla's first attack, or his appearance in Tokyo Bay. I'm not sure what exactly is on the newsprint, but he's in the newsroom. You can see him. He's right there. You can see his face. He doesn't have any speaking lines, but he's definitely there. The second one I want to give a shout out to is in Destroy All Monsters, where he is in he's in one of the control room when the key locks are, saying, "Hey, King Ghidorah, we got him." Blah, blah, blah. And he turns around. You can see him. He's right down front for like a good 2-3 seconds. You can see Nakajima, like his face spot on. And then the other one that I just discovered recently was in King Kong Escapes, which Christine hasn't seen, so she won't know this. It's the scene where they're in Tokyo and Susan is in Kong's hand, and all of a sudden, all of the crowd looks over to that building where Mechanicon comes busting through, and then it pans over to the frightened city people, and there's Nakajima right in front of the barricade, right there. So please check those out. It's kind of cool to see him out of costume, and I love that Toho decided to put him, in front of the screen, so we could actually see his face instead of just being in a monster suit, which I think was really cool. There may be others, but I can't really recall what they are now. I'm sure there are others.
There are
others. So moving right along to my choices, my choice is Rodan, 1956 Rodan. Now, the reason I chose this, and I find this is to be sort of iconic and really groundbreaking, is because in the original 54, many of you already know this, but some might not know this. Nakajima did a lot of research on how wild animals move, and he went to the zoo to study elephants for the original 54, which really didn't do anything because he couldn't really do anything but just barely walk and get from place to place, and he wasn't really able to emote or like portray any kind of an animal. He did the same thing for Rodan, but this was even a more cumbersome suit. And he went to the zoo and he watched ostriches and large birds of prey move. And again, he couldn't do anything but basically hold up the suit and not fall over as he's flapping the wings. He actually not only played Rodan, but he actually played Meganeuron, part of Meganeuron. There's several people that played in that suit, also some extra puppeteers. And I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, but in the Godzilla biography photo book, there's a scene of the hatchling Rodan, and I'm assuming that maybe he had some kind of a hand in animating that actual puppet too. Maybe Jim Cirronella, if he's still here, can actually illuminate that a little further. But it's cool to think that maybe he did that too. But Rodan, Kyle, I think you have a picture of how difficult it was.
I have 2 actually.
Oh yeah, 2. Well,
the first one is one you weren't expecting. So you keep talking. I'll show you that one,
cool.
and then we'll move to the one you know about.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. I love that one. Yeah, you can see the size of that set and how tall actually the top of the department store is. And I guess he was sort of like testing out what was going to happen when he actually had the Rodan suit on, and it was just so hard for them to do anything but sort of just get him to flap the wings and kind of move around, because it was and that's the picture that I had. You can see I guess they were just shooting from the bottom portion. He has the head off, and he's got the bandana, and the wind machine is going, and you can see how cumbersome and how difficult that shoot must have been for him, and how uncomfortable. And I'm sure you guys know the iconic scene where he's flying. He flies into the water under that bridge, and he flies up. And then all of a sudden, this cable breaks and he falls crashing down back into the water. Luckily, they were able to get him without doing any damage or having him drown or anything like that, God forbid. But it was a really challenging role for him to play because of the cumbersome aspect of that actual suit. So for that, I give him props, and that's what I chose. I love the 56 Rodan. I know I'm looking forward to the X Plus favorite sculpture line 56 Rodan, which should be coming. I think it starts to ship next week, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm really looking forward to that. Hopefully. And so it's very hard to choose, but I chose Rodan. How about you, John Ruffin? What did you choose?
You all have wonderful choices. For me, my choice is tied to my childhood and the film that I saw the most, just about the most, in any of the Showa films. And it just sort of holds a place for me, in my heart. And for how I remember Godzilla when I was growing up, it was, I didn't want to see 54 because it was too heavy. For me, it was all Justice Godzilla. Everything after Godzilla, after the Sea Monster, forward, that was what I wanted to see, especially the 70s films. And so my choice is Godzilla from Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. And Kyle, I have a little, just a short slideshow. And just what I love and what I think about the film is, I think for Nakajima-san, what he made Godzilla into came through maybe the best. I think it all came together. Some may not, disappointed, may not like the film. I love it. But his portrayal of Godzilla, you could see him coming through in the human qualities of Godzilla, unlike, I think more so than any of the films previously. And given that Godzilla vs. Gigan was his last, but I think Godzilla vs. Hedorah really, it's shown through. Carl, you can go to the next slide if you don't mind, and we can, and there. And what's special about this, and I didn't know when I was growing up, is here we have Satsuma-san in the Hedorah suit, and there's just something special about that in the place that this film holds in my memories. The next slide.
Satsuma-san, for those who might not be aware, Haruo Nakajima played Godzilla in the Showa era. When the Heisei era started up in 1984, Satsuma-san, who was Hedorah in this film, played Godzilla for those 7 films.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
And these are just some stills I snapped just to show just all that Nakajima-san, just pours through the suit. This is Godzilla, in justice mode, so I think he becomes more human as he identifies with humanity, and boy, do we need justice in these days. So this is just a great portrayal, just the hand motions and just the agonizing with the sludge and the body motions. The suit wasn't, it didn't have to be cut in half, so it come a long way in terms of suit making. And and even the condition of the suit, to me, I loved it because it was, to me, it's very animal-like. In the next slide, and you can just see, to be submerged in mud, junk, like that. This is the part of the movie I always say, oh no, but it's just, for me, it's awesome. And just the emotion, the emotive qualities that come through. And I think I have one more slide. And come on, the classic, the homage to Ultraman. He just, all this comes together beautifully. And yes, and then just you see his frustration, you see his pain, Godzilla's pain, you see he brings out, and then when we all, we kind of grimace a little bit when he flies, but I think it just pours through every scene. You just see Godzilla, I think, a mixture of all the films in a way, all the way through all this performance here. And then with the AIDS, and he just starts pulling what's left of Hedorah apart. And finally, just some clips from the film. And now I chose the X Plus 25 centimeter Godzilla 1971, which is a great representation.
Yes.
Spot on. Yep.
It's beautiful. And I would love to see a gigantic of 71 along with a Hedorah. That's a long shot, and they're pretty big, but that would be a wonderful pair. With that said, I have one last slide in there. And I'll tell you why this movie is special to me. I had the privilege of meeting him, and then many of us together at Monster Man. It was in Cherry Hill. I think it was 2015. And that was just amazing to have dinner and to meet him in person. But I had the privilege of meeting him, and I believe it was G-Con in 1996. It was 96 or 97, but I believe it was 96. And we had to go into the New Yorker hotel and out because the way we were parking, it was me and my friends. I was like, I just got to go in. I'd never been to a Godzilla convention. And as I'm coming out, they are coming in, Nakajima-san and Satsuma-san at the same time. And I don't think anybody on the streets of New York would have known who they were. And me and my friend John are like, oh, man, we're going both of them. It's like, oh, wow. And it was like seeing Godzilla versus Hedorah, in a sense, in person. So that was a wonderful connection that I'll never forget. Thank you, Colin.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
What a great choice. What a great choice. I never would have chosen that one. And now I know why you did, because in a rubber suit, if an actor can actually emote disgust, like he looks disgusted in that rubber suit at the end of that film, it's like, how the hell do you do that? He was so comfortable in that suit by that point.
That's right.
He was able to, like you said, and that's a really great choice. I respect that choice. I was like, 71. Why the hell did you pick that one? And like, now I know, because I listened to your segment and it's great. So thank you. I'll be quiet now.
I'm glad you. Thank you.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you guys so much for contributing to that, honestly, and thank you guys all for watching and chiming in while we were doing that. There's a ton of comment in there that I'm gonna, during the intermission, I might run through and check out some of those. But there is a chance that some special people were watching live while we were doing this tribute, and so Sonoe, if you're watching, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate that. All right, so I think this is the perfect opportunity for us to move on to our next. Well, we're going to take a break, a small break. I think it's just under 2 minutes, do a little intermission. And then when we come back, we have a discussion about collecting goals. And for you guys watching live and who are going to hang out for the next 2 minutes and wait for us to come back, what are some of your collecting goals out there? The example that I gave that I will talk about a little bit more during the discussion is that I still kind of want to have one of every Toho kaiju in my collection. So that's the kind of stuff we're looking for. Feel free to copy me if you want to. But if you have your own, definitely pop them into the chat room so we can see those when we come back. And yeah, we'll be back soon.